Waiting on him to join in. Ah, there we go.
Hey,
There we go.
how are you doing?
How are you?
I'm
I'm
good.
alright. And yourself?
I'm good,
Look,
thank
man.
you.
Like you, man. It's for the first time in the longest time seeing you with your jacket, and then, you know, man. Like this
I've
makes
been
me feel
told,
important. Hey.
yeah, I've been encouraged that I do have clothes and I should use more of the clothes that I have, even to this. So
No,
I'm
man.
making quality choices.
Yeah, like I said, yeah, like I feel quite special because you had a couple of live talks, and then but you were not like you didn't dress up for them. I'm the only one.
No, I didn't. So, I thought that I was having a dignified conversation with a gentleman. So I thought I'd
Yeah,
put on a
no,
jacket.
for sure, man. Cool, cool, man. I'm glad, like, yeah, I'm glad you're doing well, and I'm glad you are also like happy and excited about this topic, eh?
Yeah,
So I did pin the top. I'm saying yeah. So I did pin our topic on the conversation.
yeah,
So just to give people a little bit of a background, I once issued a question out on one of my social media platforms, and I tagged you on that conversation. And then you felt like the answer that you were going to give, it was going to be like a whole thesis. So
I
so
think
you
it's
thought,
most
okay,
answers.
no,
That's why I struggle so much on Twitter and social media. It's just, I think it's about
yeah,
5,000 characters too little.
I think so too. I think so too. I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, man. So yeah, so the question in Mqondisi was like what can be done to show people that they are innately equipped with the gift to turn things around, you know?
Yeah.
And then for me it was a thing of I was I was frustrated a little bit by the fact that I would be in the presence of people that I can see that they are able, they are capable, but for some whatever reasons I don't know, they don't know it, or they don't know how to hone those skills. Like I just didn't know. Hence I issued out the question. So
Yeah.
yeah, just to kick things yeah. Yeah. So what's your view on that? Like the first thing that comes to your mind?
Sure. There's so many things that come to mind around that, and it's a key frustration of mine as well. It's frustrating for a number
Sure.
of reasons. Um, I think one of the things that I keep coming back to is, I think it was Henry Ford, right? He said, "If you believe you can, or if you believe you can't, you're right."
You're right, yeah.
And that's such an
Yeah.
interesting thing because already you start seeing the implications of this value question, right? Already, if people believe they
Mm.
can or if they believe they can't, that's already a determining factor. And
Mm-hmm.
so, that's such an important thing, and I think it's an underappreciated point, and we don't even discuss it enough. We tend to
I don't
focus.
think so, yeah.
So I think there are a couple of things. One of the things that I have been doing in my work is trying very hard to try and ignite an understanding of the heritage and the lineage of people. So there are some people who
Ah, okay.
believe that they come from great stock, that generally the African story has been sold as something that where only dark things happen, that there's only
Mm, mm.
so it's such an interesting thing. And I'm gonna give you maybe two examples to try and illustrate the point. I want to try and be as succinct as
Yes.
possible.
Yeah, sure.
When you travel around the world, one of the things you find is that most people don't have a history gap like we do. If you ask the average South
Hmm.
African what was happening in 1651, they turn out blank. They're
I
not sure.
see.
It's such a weird thing. I'm talking about educated people. I'm talking about people who have got PhDs in statistics, do impressive things,
Man,
wonderful. But when you ask them what is happening in 1500 in South Africa, they like, sort of, for example, for in fact, it becomes a real, and it's just a weird thing. It's a real anomaly. It's not the
yeah,
experience of many other cultures that I've had the opportunity to interact with, and it was so
I
interesting
see.
to me. And one of the things that you now find is that gap has got a lot to do with the way that as Africans we view each other. So, and it's an interesting
Hmm.
thing. Of course, you'd say to yourself, what's the difference between that gap and other gaps? So let's
Yeah.
assume. So let's assume, just for the sake of argument, that you and I wanted to play a game, and this game we're going to simulate something called slavery, just for argument's sake.
Okay.
What's interesting about that is that if you wanted to enslave someone, the knowledge of geography is really important. That makes the slave more valuable. They can navigate a ship, for example, say from the West Coast across the Atlantic. I'm just making an example.
Yes. Yes.
Animal husbandry, domestication of plants, farming, all of these types of things, all of the scientific knowledge that we prize. If a slave arrives and they have all of that knowledge, what then happens is that you are going to bid more for that slave because they're going to provide you with very valuable information. However, the one thing that people were not keen on those slaves knowing was their history. It's a very interesting thing. And
wow.
you can see a number of examples there. And a slave is more profitable when they know many things, except if they know their history. It's a weird anomaly.
Please say that again. I just want to make sure that I get that.
Sure. So
a slave knows,
so a slave that knows many things is profitable. Let's assume the slave knows how to plant sugarcane, right? They know when to plant, what compost to use, all of those types of things, hugely valuable.
Yes.
I could leave them on my plantation, right, and go and attend to other things like leisure or whatever it is that, slave owners do on plantations. But the one thing that is not beneficial for the act of enslaving someone is for that somebody to know their history.
So the slave master won't benefit that much from a slave who knows much about his own history.
That's the issue. That's the
I get it. Yeah. I get it.
In a hypothetical sense, if you and I were to enslave someone, them knowing their history is a terrible thing. Because how do you convince them that they're inferior?
Wow. Jeez, yeah, that's a bomb right there. Right there. Okay, I get that.
So,
man, I hope you saw the light bulb coming up for me.
Yeah, but let me tell you how it plays out now, right? So let me give you an example.
Yeah.
There are a number of people who get told they're dumb at mathematics. They're bad at maths, or they're not good at school, or, they're inherently dumb, or all sorts of things. Now, because we don't speak about things like, say, I don't know, Great Zimbabwe. Now, Great Zimbabwe is an interesting artifact. It's a monument, right? 1200 or thereabout is when it was built. And it's dry masonry walling. So there's no mortar. Okay. But these walls, right, are about 6 meters wide at the base, up to 11 meters high, and are made up of more than 1 million bricks. So
what?
1200, right, is when that thing was built. It's 2000, it's 2020, and it still stands. Think about all the disasters that thing has seen. Think about all the marvels of engineering contained there. So if we knew that we were people that came from a line of people that built monuments like Great Zimbabwe, then we would understand that Bantu education is a hindrance. It really is. You know what I mean? It's a disadvantage. It's nothing to joke about. But we'd also know that we've been able to create monuments that can stand a millennia, even without Bantu education.
That's so true. So you wonder then where did where did that architectural knowledge come from? And then like you can tell that the Bantu education, it was a huge disservice, to put it lightly.
Sure, but if you knew that even without it, the people that came before
were
able to build huge citadels, then you know that it is a disadvantage, but you also know that it's a disadvantage that does not invalidate you building something that will last for another 1,000 years, that will benefit future generations to come. So this is key to the point, because if you understand that, then what happens is you're going, I understand that I'm limited. I understand that other people have greater advantages than I do. This is true. I'm not discounting that. Even so, even with that being the case, the people that come before me are able to do things that last 1,000 years. Now, all of a sudden, we look at ourselves very differently. Whenever I talk to audiences about these types of things, what happens is they start to sit up a little straighter. You know, they fix blazers, those that wear blazers. You know, those in tracksuit tops, well, you know, I've never really encountered in a talk.
Yeah, sure.
So
That's a good one.
yeah, so that's what happens. So I'll give you another example. I'm super frustrated by the fact that, okay, I'm Zulu, and the
Yeah.
Zulu story is known the world over. All right. Even in this phonetic alphabet, right, of Alpha, Sierra, Bravo, and so it is, you know, the Z is still Zulu. People know Shaka
Sure.
Zulu the world over. What I find so
Yeah.
frustrating about the Shaka story is that the story is so one-dimensional that it says he was a great military leader. He conquered,
Yeah.
you know, many tribes, forged a great nation, cruel guy. So there are a number of things for me that I expected to hear in that story. So let's assume you're a military leader, right? You are
Yes.
famous for inventing a long stabbing spear. Yeah. And
Yes.
you have 30,000 soldiers. So my question initially is like, where was the Zulu ArcelorMittal?
Wow.
Like, why don't we speak about that? Like, we're obviously
Wow.
blades, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? High quality of
Yeah.
stabbing and all sorts of things, and we talk about it, and we act as though the spears, you know, just maybe fell from the sky. I'm like, oh, can we?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Can we maybe
Yeah.
complete the story just a little bit? Can we flesh it out a bit? I'm so interested in, because I'm hearing things like supply chain, I'm hearing things like smelting, I'm hearing things like, you know, there's some division of labor.
Exactly.
I'm just, you know, so this is what I expected to also hear. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying, you know, but the story somehow just stops at a very convenient place where I'm just like, but wouldn't it be more profitable to? So I've gone to the Museum of Military History here that we've got in Johannesburg, and I've seen the spears that come from those wars. And I have to tell you, the craftsmanship is something.
I've seen that. I've seen that too. Yeah.
So what I've been doing is I've been looking at the heritage of just African steelmaking, and how is it that there is, you know, how is it that they steal just to be able to get to the place where we're talking about the Shaka story. I'm just so fascinated that nobody speaks about, like, where do these things come from? So now one of the things that you find is that one of the oldest mines in the world is called the Ngwenya mine. It's Eswatini. All right.
Oh, okay, Ngwenya mine. Okay, I don't know about it.
So, you know, one of the things that you're starting to look at is that it's considered the oldest mine in the world. So obviously they were taking the ore out to do something with.
True.
Now I realize, true. Yeah. So depending on how far we go back in history, right? One of the things is Bantu people are understood to have undergone a massive migration. We can talk about that some other time. But what happens is that there are two American, I forget their speciality, but they're scientists who've written, one is called Schmidt, the other one's called Avery. And they've just written a paper about African iron ore smelting. All right. One of the things they found is that as long as 2,700 years ago, in Tanzania, you can find iron smelters, all right, that use semiconductor technology that allow temperatures of up to 1,600 degrees Celsius. And what that what that allowed the steelmaker was for them to be able to complete the forging process in one step as opposed to two that was happening elsewhere around the world at the time. So it wasn't the only place where steel was being forged, but it was the only place being forged in the single step process, being far more productive and efficient, and also less harsh on the environment because it used a lot less fuel. So there's so much that we have in our heritage and in our continent. So one of the things that I expected for me was that Zulu people are going to walk around knowing that they have some kind of heritage and some kind of skill and some kind of generational knowledge, aptitude, and ability in something that the date of the Ngwenya mine, Eswatini, says they should have been doing longer on a more continuous basis than other people around the world. So, so these things are so important because one of the things that you don't hear is the story of, say, African people at a time when African people were producing goods that other nations wanted, and we existed on an equal footing of trade.
I see. I see
So,
what you mean.
so what happens is you never get told that. You get introduced to the disturbance. The disturbance
Yeah,
is clearly what we can conclude from this is that these people have no value, have nothing to offer.
exactly.
And
It's
there's
like we are an inferior nation type of a thing. Yeah.
and that's a real problem because there's some things about kind of racism or inferiority or prejudice is that there's three types. This is very important. The first type is institutional. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are racist institutions, prejudiced institutions, or whatever the case might be. The second type is interpersonal. You know, I can call you
Sure.
a whole range of interpersonal derogatory terms between us.
Yes.
The sad part is that there's a third part. And the third part is the fact that there is internalized prejudice. So what happens is people may actually believe the prejudiced things that they're being taught. That they're being
Wow, I see. I see what you mean.
so,
So
so
now
now,
it's no longer about what people are saying. It's more that now that becomes your reality now. You
that's the thing.
identify with whatever, like with the prejudice. Yeah, okay, I see what
That's
you
the
mean.
thing. That's the thing. And now we see that play out in so many different areas, right? You know, and it finds
Yes, I
utterances
get it.
every day. So, you know, when you drive a nice car, someone says, "Oh, Wimlung, says."
Yeah, Ngamla.
You see, the preserve
Yeah,
of, you know, so all of a sudden those things become a reality. And so it's important to show people who they are and what
I
their
see.
history is so that they can understand that they are not excluded from value, that they're not excluded
I
from the
see.
worth that other people around the world seem to have.
I see what you mean. I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
And that's just like the
I
first, that's the first idea of value. And that's the first way that you can go about it. Of course, the more of these
I
stories
love
you
that. Yeah.
tell, and there are many of them, hey, like, sure, you know, we could literally spend a day on them. And it's so
No,
important.
for sure.
A lot of people have never asked the question, what was happening, you know, 900 AD here? I know it's happening elsewhere, but what is it? And so it's such an important pursuit. So I'd say understanding
I
our
understand.
history as a people is an important thing.
I see
And
what you mean.
I think
So, so like I get that. Like before I forget, because
yeah.
I really want to ask you that. Like what I want to find out is that, like from an archaeological perspective, how how is it that Africans are not at the forefront of this kind of researches and projects? And then so that they can actually, have this sort of conversations, and especially in on the tables that matter. Because of you and I having this conversation is good, yes, but we are not sitting on the table whereby policies are made, and then all the things that are shaping the world are actually made. So, but how is it from an archaeological standpoint? We don't have people who are actually driving this agenda, or maybe they are there, but I don't know.
So there's two parts to that question. The first part is there are people who are driving this agenda. Okay, so I think it's UNESCO. They got together a whole
Okay,
range of African,
UNESCO.
yeah, United Nations. It's the
Got
cultural
that.
organization, yeah. And I think they got together a number of prominent African scholars. You know what I mean? All of them hailing from the continent, all around West, East, Central, South. And one of the things that they did was they produced something called the General History of Africa. So a couple of volumes where
Ah,
the history of Africa was being told from an African perspective. Okay, so that's the one thing that they did. So
I
in
see.
many ways, in an institutional way, that's one of the things that took place. Okay, so that's one of the things where an institution was trying um, to address the issue of a lack of African history and also it not being told from an African perspective. Okay, so that's the one thing.
I see.
The second thing, though, is that I don't think really that it's an institutional level idea only. All right. Is the fact that I think everybody should, to some degree, pursue an amount of knowledge that allows them to understand that they are inherently imbued with what it is that they need in order to
Mm.
overcome the challenges they face today.
Oh man,
So,
yeah, like,
so
yeah.
to that extent, to know
That's the
more what you need
that's
to
the
do.
whole church sermon right there. That's the whole church sermon right there. What you just said is a whole church sermon. I don't want to lie. Like it's a teachable moment. I'm gonna go back to this and then actually, like, write that down. Yeah, no, you are like you're on point.
No, if you're finding something to put into a tweet, you're winning. Share it with
Yeah,
me.
no, for sure.
So I think that's so that's the one idea. So the one idea is about this idea that if you know who you are, there's something about identity, something about your heritage, something about your history that puts you together in such a way that you know that you know that you know that you are
Hmm.
founded or built with, or your ingredients or your stock or your DNA has got inherent abilities to overcome challenges. That's what you get from
Yeah,
the story. There's no other way to
I
read the
believe in
story
that.
and get to a different conclusion. So
Mm.
that's the one idea around kind of convincing people about value. I think the second thing about value, and which I think maybe I'm thinking in kind of broad Africa terms, because yesterday was Africa Day. So, maybe it's an
Yes.
overhang from that thought process.
Yeah.
But one of the things is that when people, so I tend to view the billion Africans as seeds, but I kind of see the fact that the ground in which they are planted in is not prepared. So
Fer
it's not watered,
or fertile, like
clouds.
fertile enough.
Yeah. And one of the things that you can do is that you can convince a seed it's useless if you put it on concrete.
Oh man. Okay, cool. I
Yeah.
get it. Like those are bars, man. Those are bars. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, like I feel like, yeah, like I feel like you can drop some like some rap bars there. Yeah,
some
but you're
rap
on point.
bars.
You're on point.
Now you're putting me on
Yeah.
to rhyme, and oh, you're
Yeah,
exposing my
yeah. No, I
weakness.
see what you mean. So
So,
yeah, so you are saying that so we as Africans, like you are seeing as seeds. Obviously, seed is equipped with the potential to become a forest or whatever fruit that seed represents.
there's
But if you put it in a soil that is not fertile enough to make it what it can be, then for sure that seed will think it's useless.
absolutely. And so
I love that.
then we look at the seeds and we start shouting at the seeds and we're saying to them, "But why aren't you producing?" It's the abundance is clear. We know
Ah
that,
man,
for a seed to be, it had to come from a plant or a fruit or something that produced before, and the likelihood of
exactly,
produce again. It's the nature
exactly.
of the thing, is production. So I
Yes,
think
exactly.
a conversation I'm having, what I mean, where value is concerned, is okay. These things inherently have the ability to produce. Are we putting them in the place to produce? You know,
Wow, wow.
so that speaks for me to the enabling environment that we have, the agreements
Yeah,
that we have together as people. What are those agreements? Because those agreements constitute whether or not the soil is fertile or not.
I see.
Yep.
I see
So
what you mean.
those are two. I think that those are two kind of. I think we can stop at two for now.
Mm.
I think there's a lot more.
Yeah, for sure.
But
No, for sure.
you know what I mean. This history and identity, and also a context and enabling environment. Those are two things that we can start at. But there's a lot more that
I
we can
love,
pick up.
yeah, I love that. So, if you don't mind me asking, so about the enabling environments, because of the question that I was going to ask you is that if like from this analogy that you're using, if Africans are more like seeds, and then what is to be the ground that we're talking about, And then I think you answered it by saying there are institutions or there are environments we find ourselves in, and if they are not enabling us to actually spawn to be whatever plants that we are or whatever like fruits that we are, so then it means the environments we find ourselves in are not enabling enough. So my question would be that then if I am this apple seed and then I happen to be thrown on concrete being whatever company that I'll be working for, or whatever family I might be born in, or whatever country I find myself in, with corruption and with lack of resources and with lack of, like, industries, and with lack of access to markets, whatever that you can think of. So my question now, it will be that, what do I do now? Like I'm damned because of I'm just putting in concrete, or there's something that I can do to actually make sure that I go on some fertile soil.
Sure. Okay, you make me look bad now because you asked me a long question and you want a short answer, and I'm not sure that I've got. This is a
No,
it's a pet.
yeah, maybe.
This is a pet issue of mine. So
Yeah, no, I think with you, sorry, I think with you, like, we must do the opposites. Like, because if I ask short questions, you give long answers. So if I ask short questions, you give long answers. Maybe if I ask long questions, you give short answers.
yeah. So let's take it from the top. There are a number of things. One, I really am frustrated with the idea that we need to wait for leaders to do some things. Okay.
I love that.
And there are a couple of reasons for that. For better or for worse, whether we understood the choice or not, we live in an environment where the people shall govern. It's a very important point. The person who's governing is not Ramaphosa. It's you, Tab.
I agree.
All right?
I agree.
And everybody on this IG live, those are the people who should be governing. This is the system that we've got, right? Ramaphosa and Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and Fikile Mbalula, those are people who are delegated to do what it is that we mandate them to do.
So they facilitate the process. They're just facilitators. They're not necessarily the ones who should do the stuff, the things.
Sure. So let me put it this way.
We give them mandates.
Yeah. So, and this is a difficult thing, and I think that this is something that, one day we should all meet in Kinshasa as Africans and just be like, guys, let's have that amongst us. So let me tell you how I think this took place. So I mentioned that I'm Zulu, right? Ever since Uqetshwayo lost Olundi,
yes,
and to the British in 1879, what happened was the system of government that we had as Zulu people was a monarchy. Yeah. And from 1879 until 1994, right, we went from a monarchy to a democracy. The stuff in between we're just subject to. That's what oppression means. It means you didn't have a choice. So you endured the stuff in between, right? But you never had a choice.
The stuff you could do, yeah.
So what happened, unfortunately for us, and I think this is true of very many African countries, is the fact that we went from a system of monarchies into, in 1994, elective monarchies. So what we did is we elected a king. Yep. We did not elect somebody who works for us. Yeah. So when we saw Nelson Mandela, we didn't see somebody who worked for us. We saw somebody who was lord over us, taking the last model that we had. So we replaced
I get you.
with Mandela. Now, let's talk about monarchies. When the king is good, things are great. When the king is bad, things are terrible.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
You pray that the sun is going to be better. So
that's so true.
What we do is that we also have this elective monarchy system where we are praying that the next president will be better.
I understand.
Other leaders are going to be more insightful. We're praying that those leaders will understand small business. We're praying that those leaders are going to release spectrum. We're praying, but we don't see that we are the ones that are governing, and they're the ones that should be doing what it is that we have decided they should do.
Wow.
So let me show you how this works, right? So our politics is a lot like a football team. There are lots of people.
Okay.
There are lots of people who will cry for Kaizer Chiefs. There are people who will be depressed for Orlando Pirates. Yeah. Some people will eat rice, and other people are going to sleep in a pirate suit. They
Sure.
will show you more emotion. They will show you more emotion than they will ever show any other place in their lives, right?
Yeah.
You go to Soccer City, right? You're going to see grown men crying who have never cried even at funerals. You'll find
Yeah.
you're going to find homophobic people jumping and hugging other people. Yeah,
Yeah,
you'll see
sure.
them. But one of the things,
True.
when that game is done, yeah,
Ah.
they go home. The spoils, who are the spoils for? Who gets the trophy? Who gets the prize money?
The players.
It's the players.
Team.
Those people, even showing all of that emotion, are happy to go home with the feeling, but none of the spoils. They don't
Oh.
demand a piece of that prize money. They don't
Yeah.
command any recognition for that trophy. They just go with the fuzzy feeling. My team won.
What an amazing analogy.
Now, for
Yeah.
us, too much of our politics is about the fact that my team won. My team is blue.
Wow.
My team is green. My team is purple. And all of those things that we take the happy feeling, but the spoils remain
This
for the politicians.
for the politicians, yeah. Wow.
They're not for us.
Jeez.
So
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is how we act. All right. This is our belief. And so one of the things that we need to do is that, coming back to this idea of identity, is we have to connect the fact that you, A, are capable, B, you can go after the pursuits which allow you to be good at governing, that you then do so, and then you come as an equal to the table with Tsepo and you say, right, here's what I think we should do. You know, here's why I think we should keep our national airline. Here's why I think we should do renewables and nuclear. Here's why I think we should do this with our fisheries and forestry. Here's what I think we should do with the now. Here's the foreign policy that I think we should implement. All right. But if you don't think that you're in charge, you don't concern yourself with the things of people who govern. So
I see what you mean.
So when I say, what are our foreign policy options? They're like, no, our leaders are letting us down. We are the ones that should know, because we're the ones that should then hold the people who have delegated the task of conducting our foreign policy. But how can you hold them accountable if you don't know what they should do?
So then, are you saying that we should be the custodians of the activities that should shape our lives and then our world?
Absolutely. We can't wait for a politician to come and do this. We are the system we've got, for better or for worse. This is the system we've got. The system says you're in charge, delegate.
Yeah.
So when people campaign for an election, they should be interviewing for a job. They should be showing their football colors and showing us how well they dance.
Yeah, sure, sure, true. No, I like that. But I'm going to say, like, there's one thing that I like with what you just mentioned. There's one thing that is causing a little bit of a turbulence in my head, if I were to say, to say. It is that I think it was Plato or Aristotle, one of the two, who was against this thing of democracy. He was saying that no, a monarchy is by far the best one, because of what you do is you elect people who are elite enough, people who studied, who went, like to the ends of the world to understand how the world works, and then what are the things that should be done to shape the world to be a better place. And then if you throw it to the hands of the public or the majority, you're talking about people who are ignorant, who would not know how the world works. And then how will you entrust the many or the majority with things that matter, because of they don't have the expertise to actually like facilitate the processes that make, or activities that make the world what it should actually be. So what would you say about that? Because of the majority of us let's talk about South Africa, for instance. The majority of us is that we don't have the expertise, some of us. We don't know how the world functions. There are so many people who are just sitting and waiting for something to happen from someone, some way. And then it's not that they don't want to. Some of them is because they just don't know what to do. So what do you say about that? Like, I get that, like, the responsibility should lie with us. We should be more of the custodians of the things that shape the world. But now we are faced with a situation whereby the majority are not necessarily the elites. They're not necessarily elite is not a good word. They're not necessarily the people with the expertise.
So it depends on your perspective. My perspective is a very simple one. There's nothing that
Sure.
Africans can't do. The end.
I like that. I like that.
So we can go into
Period. Yeah.
the reasons as to why perhaps isn't happening. So, and again, there's a whole range of options here, but I want to talk to you about just one effect, right? So there's something called the Pygmalion effect, all right? Sometimes it's called the Rosenthal effect. Pygmalion?
Pygmalion effect, okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
Or the
Pygmalion. Okay.
Rosenthal effect. Okay, so and this what's so interesting about looking at both of those things is the following: is that it describes the same phenomenon. Rosenthal is a researcher, and he goes to a school somewhere. Lynette Jacobson is the principal's name, the school that she runs. And he says to her, look, one of the things that I want to test is to understand what role expectations have on performance of students.
Expectations on performance, okay?
Yeah. So they get together, they agree to do the experiment. Rosenthal then comes in and says to the teachers, what we're going to do is we're going to give a test, all right? And I forget what he names the test. I always forget the name because it's a fake test. So, I'm just not sure that I ever
sure.
time. But he called it like, the Harvard test of intellectual inflection or something, but it's made up. You know what I mean? You put the name Harvard in there just for it to be acceptable. But it really wasn't a test that was going to test this. And he says, what I'm going to test is which students are going to bloom academically in the coming year. So they administer the test to all the kids, the results come back, and then they come back to the teachers and they say, right, one of the things that we did is that we've looked at all of the kids who are going to bloom intellectually in your class in the coming year. These are their names. Don't tell them. Okay? So the kids don't know. The teachers also don't know that there was a fake test. They don't know that Rosenthal just picked any random name in every class.
Ah.
Yep, because the test
so it's a mystery to all of them,
Then what happens is the kids who the kids whose names are handed to the teacher, all of them do exceptionally well, and they do better academically than the other kids in the class, even though many of these kids showed no prior ability academically.
Wow.
Correct.
Well, before they didn't,
So
I get it.
one of the things that shows you, and then what's happened with this effect that's been replicated time and time and time again. They tried it in the military. They tried it in corporate settings. They tried it. I remember the last time I was reading that they were trying it with rats.
Yes.
So that should be interesting. That the power of expectation is so great that if you expect something of someone, right, and you act accordingly, right, that those people that you are placing the expectation on, their real performance, not their fake performance, not their smile, not their disposition, their actual marks, their IQ, their SATs, as they call them in the States, actually rise. All right, think about that.
Wow.
So when you expect more from people,
yes.
is that what then happens that people actually raise their performance. So
I see what you mean. So this thing of 30% is bad, like it's a bad thing, like of saying matriculancy now is 30% pass rate. So that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because we're expecting less from you. It's like you can't hit 50%, so let's take it to 30.
Absolutely. It's a terrible thing. So in Zulu experience, it's interesting, right? Because if I go to a friend of mine, right, and I say to him, oh, mavovo,
Yeah,
and,
sure.
ngimtophe into khabazela umuhle.
Yeah, sure.
Ngicela ungibole ku-50
Yeah. I love it. I see.
I can't now ngeke ngize kumavovo ukhabazela.
Yeah.
Uhlula
Yeah.
ngeke kwenzeke.
Yeah, sure.
So
I like that. Yeah. So you raise the bar of expectation, and then the person does what they can do to meet that specific expectation.
Sure. Now, what's important about that is that the person who is doing the raising of the expectation should not also have a low expectation themselves.
Wow. How do you marry the two?
So think about it. If I think, let's assume, for better or for worse, that unfortunately apartheid got to me. I believe black people are inferior. Ish. So to help this black child, all I can do for this black child is to lower the standard for this black child. They're not going to.
I see.
They're not going to reach the heights of academic achievement because they're black.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if I
And I
come
love
to you
how.
and I say, and if I come to you and I say, listen, guys, the fact that you are black means that you are inherently good at problem solving, that you're inherently good at the people that came before you can build monuments, they can raise cattle, they can do
Yeah.
all these
Our
things.
history backs that up. Yeah.
Think about it, these were goldsmiths, right?
What's happening? Go, please. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, no, someone was trying to call me. That was
Yeah.
bit of
Okay, cool.
yeah. So one of the things is when you look at, say, the history of Mapungu, a place where I think all South Africans should go.
Man, that's one of my
And
awesome places.
you look at the golden rhinoceros, right? You can tell
Man.
what those people are up to.
The detail, bruh. The detail,
And also
like,
the
yeah.
fact that gold melts at 1,064 degrees Celsius, and that you first mine the ore,
Yeah.
crush the rock, get an ounce, melt it, fabricate it, all of those types of things, and you're doing that. And so if I come to you and I say that you can't tell me you can't do that because people who came before you who never saw a textbook were able to achieve that level of expertise and perfection. The fact that
I see what you mean.
you see, this is the fundamental point, is that you can't say to me that you can't get to something as easy as the theory.
Man, I get you. No, like, yeah. Yeah, like now, Mqondisi, like I can actually now join the dots. Like you're making so much sense because what you're saying now is that because the last question that I asked, you are now mapping it with the very first point that you made about us being aware of our identity from from the records that history actually proves. And then once we do that, we know that we are capable. Then it means my question is actually nullified by the fact that there are people who even had like a less sophisticated technology than me today, who managed to do things far better than people are doing things today. So then, what is my excuse then?
Yeah, and we can take it a different way from the other part. We can say these kids who do not have a nutritious meal every day and who walk to school for 5 kilometers or more underperform academically. So that's an environment question. Remember, we talked about the fact that this is a seed. We can then ask ourselves the question, if we gave these children nutritious food and eradicated the need for them to walk far to A, get to school, or B, get water, what would the effect be? So you can, so that's why I was saying the value question is multifaceted. And, I'm not trying to suggest that it's a one size fits all, but you can start to see the implications in our everyday lives. And that's how we actually raise performance. Instead of waiting for a leader who one day might have the thought that this is a good idea, execute the idea, and maybe then we get to some kind of resolution.
Yeah, and like that is why I'm going like I love this idea of individual like sovereignty, being able to accept your own views and then your own worldview and then expand it in whatever way you can, hone the skills that will be instrumental in solving problems that you care about, that are actually meaningful to you. I believe that is the key to many things because this thing, to a certain extent, they have a ripple effect. It happens to be like there's this thing of when you do something and you do it well, people who are around you, for some reasons, they get inspired, like they catch the light as well, and then they seek within themselves as well what they can do as well, and then like instead of waiting for some power somewhere to actually do something, you know what I mean? And then I'm not really sure exactly like if there are certain platforms that will be effective in actually driving this message and making people aware of or how equipped they are with the gift to like actually like make things happen. So do you think the current platforms that we have or forums that we have are not effective in delivering messages that lead people to their truth?
I don't think it's a platform issue, to be honest. So the reason why I speak and the reason why I'm a keynote speaker, even though I struggle with hearing myself speak because I don't like my delivery. I struggle listening to myself because I think I could have said it so much better. I could have been more succinct. I feel like I stutter too much. I feel like I have too many additional words, right? It's not as though it's one of those things that I necessarily enjoy. One of the
Yeah.
things is that I think it was, I'm going to borrow a Nietzscheanism. It says, if you have a why, you can bear any how.
How? Yeah.
So
Another one, yeah.
the purpose should override the institution, the platform, the
Sure.
ability, the mechanism, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
The
the
tools, yeah.
reason why I think this conversation is important is because whatever this platform is, for all of its limitations, for what it is and isn't, if more of us start to understand who we really are and what we're capable of and what our value is, innately what's going to happen is that we're going to supersede the limitations of the platform.
I
It's
love that.
the why is in the
I
power.
love that.
The power is in the why. It's not in the how. The how we'll get to however we get to. So the fact that I can speak, you know what I mean, do corporate keynote speaking, for example, that's a delivery of the message. The fact that we're doing it now on Instagram Live, that's a delivery of the message. Maybe we can do it via books, via
Yes.
whatever it is. But the thing is, we've got to go to where people are to ignite the spark within them so that they
Spark.
can go and draw more information. All right, so that's
I
the
see what
goal.
you mean.
You want to be able to have the type of energy that once you light it, right, it's going to stay in a process of reaction, driving somebody else to find out more, even without being
Mm,
available. So
I
if we're
like
doing
that. I
that,
like that.
I
I like
don't think
that.
the platform is
Yeah.
the limiting factor. So what we've
I
got to
see
do
what
is
you mean.
focus on why we're doing this, what the message is, what we hope people will get to, and do that no matter where, no matter how, and continue to optimize and innovate so that we can get to more and more people.
Because like ultimately the intention will actually energize all the efforts that we will
Yeah,
take
yeah,
like in ensuring or making that thing a possibility. Can I read some of the questions, Mko?
sure, go for it.
Yeah, before we actually run out of time, I just want to make sure that people don't think that like we are not paying attention to what to the questions that they have. I think I saw like few questions, so I'm only checking the ones with the question marks. Okay, cool. So this guy is saying, what do you do? Like, what do you do and what do you event business should do? Or what do you think? I think he's trying to say that. What do you think event businesses should do during this pandemic?
Event businesses,
Like event,
all right, what they
yeah,
should do during this pandemic.
sure.
Sure, okay. So um, what I did was yesterday I gave a talk, and we're talking to people in the tourism industry. We're talking about the idea
Oh
that,
yes, I remember. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. The afternoon yesterday. Yes, I checked that one.
sure. So one of the things that I was mentioning in that talk, and it's available online. I'll try and, you know, if you follow some of the tweets, you can go to the crowdcast link. And I would
Oh
encourage
sure.
the person who's asking the question to actually go
The
and check it
question.
out, because I fleshed this out in a little more detail. Is the idea that what we need to do at this point in time is to understand that we're going to have to do we're going to have to do different things. All right. And that's
Agreed.
disconcerting because it's not often that crises are deep enough for us to do different things. The second thing is that we're going to have to
Ah, I see.
understand what it is that our events business was delivering. What was the
Ah, okay.
why
Okay.
my events business? All right. Now,
Okay.
it's amazing how long you can function in business in any economy without necessarily understanding the why, only that people are happy to do things. Because if you can
I
understand
see what you mean.
why people came to your events, was the knowledge, Was it the experience? Was
What
it
were you
the
sharing?
what was?
Yes.
If you can understand clearly what that was, then what you can do is you can go, what was there now that wasn't there before, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was there before that isn't there now? So you keep focused on the why, and then you do an assessment of what do I have and what don't I have anymore. And then you can try and
Yes.
deliver the why again with what you got. So that's
I see what you mean. So then what you are telling this guy, it is that it's not necessarily like because of you were doing an event, for that event to be in a certain location, in a certain place, it was the platform and the manner at which you were delivering it. That was the method in which you were delivering your value. So, but think of what that value is and find ways to deliver the very same value with the limitations that we have, which is the limitations of geography, the limitations of how we cannot move, we cannot have like a physical place like we used to, so on and so forth. The
sure.
value is the very thing because of it is your why actually.
Sure.
Ah man, I love that. I love that. Let's
There's
look
more detail.
for another question. Yeah,
Try and read me
yeah.
40 minutes worth of content.
No, I agree to 100% on that one. So there's this one person who asked a question, and I think I'm missing it. I think it was Lerato. She was also asking a question like it was related to the exact thing that you were saying, but I'll find it like as I'm looking for it. Is there any point that you wanted to make, Amko, that maybe I cut you while I was speaking? Because I felt like you were saying something and then I cut you,
No.
or not
I
really.
was also just seeing a question on screen.
Oh
Maybe I
yes.
take this one from Adi then, who says, I
Oh
find
sorry,
that there
yeah.
isn't enough learning material in terms of African history. What recommendations do you have? Okay,
Ah,
so
okay.
yeah.
Nice one.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of recommendations, but let me start off by doing it this way. So the essence of strategy is the question first who, then what.
Mhm.
The who comes first, and the what comes second. Okay, it's such an important thing, and it's
I
important.
get that.
I think how to read history is something that I've been asked to do, maybe 10 minutes on, because what happens is history is written by the victors. All right,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
it's not written by the losers. Yeah. So
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure,
the
for
people
sure.
who win wars are the
Mm.
ones that write history. So they decide what gets told.
They control the narrative, yeah.
It's such an important point, because if you think about it, if I had to say in the Western world, and this is I don't to get myself into trouble with this.
Yeah, I don't still fetch you, my friend.
They'll fetch people. The most vilified military leader who conquered the most amount of territory. That's interesting for me, right? Because
Wow.
there's a military leader that conquers 1/5 of the world's landmass. 1/5 of the world.
Mhm.
Think about that. And
Jeez.
then what happens is somebody who conquers a lot less land. One of them is called so and so the Great, and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
other
yeah,
one
yeah.
is
Like
vilified as being
just an African, yeah. Just an
yeah,
African king.
in this case, an Asian, right? So he's just vilified as being a brutal leader. So one is Genghis Khan, right? So
Yes.
this is the Mongol emperor who conquers 1/5 of the world. Now, one of the things that I
Wow.
expected to, and let me just put it this way, what I expected to hear before maybe I go too controversial, what I expected to hear is that if Alexander of Macedon, right, the Greek city-state of Macedon, was the great,
Y-
because he
Yes.
conquers this amount of land, I would have expected to hear that Genghis Khan is the greatest because he conquers that amount of
He's
land.
the greatest, yeah. Yes. Yes,
What's interesting
exactly.
now, before I'm not making a judgment statement on who should be the great or the greatest, because frankly, not in that fight. It's not my fight, all right?
Yeah, sure.
Why I use those two examples is that the Mongols did not write. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Very important point. The Mongols had no written language. They literally ruled
Yeah.
one-fifth of the world's landmass without any writing whatsoever. Think about that. Just, what it is to rule Asia from China all the way to the Middle East, and you guys don't write anything down.
Wow. So they did not record any of this, like trends, like none of that were like actually recorded.
No, so,
like the way the history of the Roman Empire is actually recorded.
No. There are records, remember, because you can't conquer 1/5 of the world's landmass, right? And people don't
know about it.
The point that I'm making is that it is written from the view of the people who are being conquered.
I see what you're saying.
Because generally,
it's
the conquerors who write the history. I just find it interesting that because the Mongols do not write, Genghis Khan is a villain. But the Greeks were writing, and Alexander is the Great. It's just
I see what you mean.
Point. I'm just
So I don't know. For sure. I get your point. So then, what we're saying now,
we should read African history from both vantage points, both from the people who were conquering, but also from the people who were conquered. Now, there's two things on history that needs to be understood: is that it's just not only words that speak in history, and I think that's why it's important to make the point as to how to read history, right? Because archaeology also speaks. Yep.
I see what you mean.
So we know about Nguni still making now, in large parts because we can find the furnaces, and we can find the the spears, and we can find the steel tips, and we can understand that process, and we can find the mines. None of that was recorded, right? But the testament of all of those things tells a singular story.
I like that. So it's not. It's just.
It has no excuse.
It's just one-sided. Yeah,
there's no excuse not to be. You know what I mean? A stainless steel.
Sure. No, I love that. So we're gonna actually run out of time. It tells me that we are left with exactly 40 seconds.
Yep.
And then it ran so fast, eh? It ran so fast, man. So I want you to actually pledge in front of everyone, because I know if I go private, like on a private conversation with you, you might not you might dodge me, but just confirm in front of everyone that we will do this again. But we don't know when, but we'll do it again. Just say yes.
Yeah, happy to.
Thank you so much. So the whole world knows. Yeah. So you be held accountable by everybody. Thank you so much, my brother.